to communicate with emergency services when you are out of cell phone reach. We just stopped on the way and bought another one of these.
Another guy somewhere sold me another one of these for only $50. These actually, we really like these. You can't do too much with them. I mean, you can send 3 messages and an SOS. So you can't use them to like text with your phone or anything like that. But they take 4 AAA batteries that last like 21 days. And they're pretty much bomb-proof. As long as you leave them on, you know, they'll track forever. Yeah, I mean, the SOS is pretty well covered up. You won't hit it by accident. One of the main things is that if you can send a message at the end of every day. Hi, we made it to camp and everything's good. And so on the Tour Divide, I forgot a few days, and then like finally we got into service, and my dad says like, "They worried sick about you." Shit, you know, like I gotta remember to do that. But yeah, so as Jen says, like sometimes we also go right down the Rideau Canal. So we go like World Heritage Site right by the Parliament buildings, and then like 125 days later, you have no cell service. I mean, like what a place we live in. It's very cool. Did you want to talk about this? Okay, well, so we do have a land acknowledgement on our website, which is not it's a bit nicer than this. But the entire route is on unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people, and I think that's really important to notice or to note. The other thing is that part of the reason that we have access to all this gravel, beautiful gravel riding, is because of the settlements patterns that and the resource extraction in the Ottawa Valley and the Gatineau Valley, and all of the old abandoned farms that are going back to bush. So you're riding by these old split rail cedar fences, and there's all these great old buildings off in the woods and whatnot. I mean, the place was like jam-packed with people 100 years ago, and now there's nobody there. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like every 10K there was a place, you know, with like a hamlet. Anyway, we have some really cool people. We call them trail angels that and that's one of the things you'll find on the map. Is often the camp spots are just like you know, somebody who's contacted us, so like, I'd like to have people stay with me or camp at my house. Well, it's been a bit tough because of COVID. People don't generally want to have people stay with them in the house. But, you know, this was during COVID. We stayed with a couple. We stayed in their yard. We, you know, visited on their front step and stuff. But, I mean, it is a cool thing because of that sense of community. And we've been around it enough times now that we go into a store, they start to recognize, oh, hi, you know, like, how's your grandmother? You know, in Ladysmith, with Gerda's husband was delivered by Jen's grandfather. You know, like, you know, so it's like these things happen, but it's really cool. I find it really cool because I don't come from here. And anyway, so we've got rail trails. There's all sorts of crown land. Not enough in my books, but and then we've got parks. There's a lot of little community parks and along the rail trails. Like if you're adventurous and want to stealth camp, there's lots of spots. You know what stealth camping is? Stealthy, like after dark. You know, go in, camp, leave. Nobody knows you're there. You don't pay. Nobody's hurt. No trace. No trace. Exactly. But I mean, yeah. So.
I would just add to that that the landscape that we ride through is heavily influenced by the logging industry, and it's a big reason we have log drivers Waltz name. We were trying to come up with something that would represent the landscape of our route, and as a kid, I was very familiar with the Log Drivers Waltz NFB film, and the music of the Log Drivers Waltz has a great imagination around it. And we made it, and we were thinking about sugar bushes and the pines and such, and I think Eric was riding along and
But with habit plumbing the same like 2 bars over and over for like 24 hours. I realized I was humming on Log Drivers Waltz going down a road called the Bathurst Line.
So in addition to our 800-kilometer flagship route, kind of, we have a dozen routes on our website that are different distances. There are the 1 to 3 day routes that really are aiming to be gateway. Gateway bikepacking routes. To get people, offer weekenders and accessible opportunities to jump on their bikes and do something that they can achieve in a short period of time. These routes, many of them have more services, so you could go without a tent, and the elevation is not as crazy and
use rail trails more, that sort of.
Yeah, so not as rough as some sections of the Log Drivers Waltz. There are also the 4 to 5 day routes that are challenging, but offer an opportunity to do a shorter trip than the 800.
When we say 1 to 3 or 4 to 5, we're assuming that people are going to ride between 80 and 100 kilometers a day. So, and so it sort of depends a little bit on gauging that. But that. That's how we started out. We used to ride the Log Drivers Waltz in 8 or 9 days, right? 800 kilometers a day. And lots of people in the Grand Depart last year. I know it says 2023 because I was too lazy to dig back to find the insignia from 2022, but that's this year's date. So, right in your diet. But so a Grand Depart is something we didn't really think about when we started making the route because we'd never been in one. So like, why would we even think about this? And then somebody said, "Are you going to have a Grand Depart?" And we said, "What's a Grand Depart?" Yeah, Grand Depart. Oh, sure, that looks like fun. We'll have a Grand Depart. So we had one last year. We didn't have one for 2 years because of COVID, obviously. Well, not obviously, but we didn't because of COVID. And but a Grand Depart is where it's basically an invitation. Like we said, we are going to go ride the route starting on August 22nd, and everybody that wants to can come along, but you're fully self-supported and you're fully responsible for your own safety. It's not an organized event. There's no sanctioning, no insurance, there's nothing. Like, it's just like the route's there. You want to come ride it? That's great. So 30 people said, yeah, they would want to do that, and they came. And so we all met in Almont at Equator. So we went to Equator, we said, like, we got 30 people that want to come and ride this. Do you want to do a breakfast special? And they said, okay, that would be fun. So it was really fun. We had a breakfast special, and people met and they talked to each other, and like, I cried a little bit. But it was like so wild to see all these bikes come into one spot and know that somehow we'd had something to do with it. And, and people went off, and about half of them finished it too, which was, about average for this. And then the other half generally had a really good time on the part that they did. Except for this guy Spencer, who was on a single speed. He didn't have a good time. He was over here. He's done some severe things like the Morocco Atlas race in Morocco. He knows what he's doing. He just didn't have the right limit. I've got a former student right down there, right? You know, like a former student shows up, and Mr. Beveridge. Anyway, but so we had all these people come, and I'm probably missing stuff.
It's very much challenged by choice. It's absolutely the ride that you want to do, and we invite people to start on a particular day, and there's a camaraderie that develops. There are the people that want to race it, but our focus is primarily people that want adventure at their more relaxed pace than those few that are out on the pointy end of the group of riders. We had 7 women show up to ride, which as ratios go, it's pretty good. For a first Grand Depart, we're pretty pleased with that. We want to see more of that as we go. But it's very much challenged by choice, and it's for riders that are out there to push themselves as fast as they can. There are riders who are riding it to be the fastest ever. And we have there's an FKT, a fastest known time, for the Grand Depart, because those are level. It's a level playing field for it's the same conditions for all of those riders. You can't compare to somebody who leaves from their house on a day of their choosing.
But that's like a really small one.
Sorry.
It's okay. We do the steam. Oh yeah, you do the steam.
We're very keen supporters and participants of the Canadian Ski Marathon. It's a wonderful part of Canadian culture in cross-country skiing, and they have it's not a race, and we want to encourage that idea of recognizing and encouraging people to set their own goals and strive towards a goal, and that can be riding the whole distance or riding part of it. It could be riding chunks of it over many months.
Gene right now.
and celebrating that. So on our website we have some stories of people who have ridden it in different ways, and sharing those stories in a way encourage other people to join in and feel part of that kind of.
Before you hit that, can I say something? So bikepacking, if you look at some of the traditional routes in bikepacking, there's this ethos of solo, self-supported, I'm gonna hurt, like this was so tough, like, you know, like there's this like, I almost died, it was so hard. And that's fun at times, but that's not for everyone. And so, you know, on a lot of routes, it's like if you don't make it, you scratched. And we got interviewed by a Canadian cycling magazine or something. Jen said, I just don't want to hear the word scratched. Like if you didn't go the whole distance, you were out there for 5 days and you went 500 kilometers, that's not a scratch. That's like a pretty darn good effort. And you should be proud of that. And so, like, the silver is like, yeah, you've been out, you've done 500K and spent 4 nights sort of thing, right? And the bronze is, like, you did it overnight. Hey, like, I remember my first overnight, and everybody had to start with an overnight, except for some very, few exceptions who, like, maybe ride on the road. Hey, okay, keep talking, okay, get moving. Okay, so one of the other things that we wanted to do was create something that wasn't like a grand depart where people met and then everybody disappeared. So the rally is a little bit different, and basically going to start people ride from Ottawa, because we think primarily it's going to be people from Ottawa. We've got 33 people signed up so far. Ride from Ottawa to Wesley Clover Park and camp there overnight, and then ride from there out to Pakenham and camp there overnight, and then ride back. So, in fairly reasonable distances and not a lot of elevation, and also a chance to, meet each evening, meet in the morning, share ideas. Maybe you ride with somebody, maybe you don't, but at the end of the day, everybody's in the same spot, and so every day is a fresh start. Was the route you did, was that a rally or was it bikepacking?
It was a race.
Yeah, it was a race, okay.
It was
yeah. But I think somebody did a rally there very recently.
There's a few, yeah. Right before, I think, it was an all-women rally.
That's right,
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
That's right, the week before.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon, and so we thought this would be a really good idea to do, because also, sometimes, and this is something, a lot of people don't feel safe being out there by themselves, and they may not want to camp by themselves, and so this is a way to provide, a network. And the other thing is that we said, because space is limited based on our accommodation spot in Pakenham, we said we're going to save half of the spots for underrepresented groups, so women, trans, non-binary, BIPOC, anybody that feels like, so we just asked that we want to be considered for those, and they said yes or no, and half of the people that signed up said that they want to be considered for that. So we think that's pretty cool. So we're going to do it. We're probably going to do it on 2 weekends, just because we've gone over 30, and 30 is our max. So probably 12 people will show up each day. It doesn't matter. We'll have it.
In addition to this kind of capacity building, giving people experience and information, we hosted a couple of evening talks where there were panel discussions that we held over Zoom. And I had the opportunity to sit in on this kind of panel, and it was like a little trip to the UK. I was invited to sit in on a women's only panel that was promoting women riding the Dales Divide in the Yorkshire Dales of the UK. And we copied their great idea, and we hosted a women's only panel and audience to create a safe space for women to share bikepacking questions and experiences, and followed that up with an open session the next week with a range of panelists, and really just the idea of sharing information and giving people the chance to hear some stories of experienced riders that have ridden the log drivers' Waltz.
Like, no more talking. So that's your bike.
Yeah, it's my bike. We've talked a lot about the log drivers' Waltz route, and we.
That's not the log drivers' Waltz, by the way. The first picture is, but the second picture is not. But we thought we'd talk about bikes in concrete terms. I ride a small, and this is extra small, Salsa Fargo, which is it's a mountain bike made by an American company, Salsa, that
really created adventure bikes that are, this model was the most popular until recently, the most popular design of bike for riding the Tour Divide, which we'll talk about in a bit. But a mountain bike, it's a mountain bike with drop bar handlebars that are wide, and my small frame does not fit a frame bag like Eric's does. We both have put racks on the back of our bikes, and it's particularly important for me because a saddlebag is, there's no room between my saddle and my wheel to carry much of a bag back there. So I've got a very secure load on the back of my bike, and we've got bottle cages all over the place that allow you to put water, bear spray, or beer cans.
Beer cans is good.
What gas?
Fuel bottles, yeah.
We do sometimes. We've given up cooking, and we just like eat stuff. Cold mashed potatoes with tuna and things like that. That was a decision for the Tour Divide. So it was going to take too long to cook. As Jen says, a lot like a bike that's specifically built for bike packing has lots of attachment points that you won't find on a lot of other bikes. It's becoming, I mean, again, 3 years ago you couldn't buy bikes with all these attachment points very easily. Now you can.
Not necessary. You can.
There's retrofit
You
stuff.
can get around strapping stuff on your bike without specific bosses for racks and cages.
I guess one thing, I mean, a lot of people ask about like what bike should I have, I think that like we have settled on ideally for something like the log driver's Waltz, a 2.25 tire, like so 2 1/4 inch tire, seems to be a pretty sweet spot. It's got enough cushion and grip for some of the rough stuff, but it's not like you're not riding around with a 2.6 inch tire like fat biking all over the place. That would be, I think one of the, I wouldn't say it's the minimum. I think you could go with a 47C tire, people do, but probably for comfort, the bigger tire. But would I not go because I didn't have this bike? No, I'd go on the bike I have, right? Like that's, the other thing is gearing. So a bike packing bike and a touring bike are actually built just a little bit differently. And a touring bike is made out of like stiffer tubes because they know that you're going to put bigger weight on it. And so you shouldn't load up a bike packing bike too much because it will start twisting and things like that. But so you have maybe 20, 26 pounds of stuff on a bike. A tour might have like 200 pounds. No, I don't know. But I mean, if you look at some of them, right? 2 bags and all front and back. But the gearing still matters. You don't want to be having to stand up. Walking is always an option, though. I mean, if you have a bicycle and it doesn't have a low enough gear, then the obvious thing to do is to get off your bike and walk, right? On the Tour Divide, people walk. We saw lots of people walking, just because, hey, well, they were tired of riding, and if you're spinning up a hill at 3K an hour, why not get up and walk at 3K an hour and get a rest? Take a break from riding for a bit.
We opted for steel bikes. Of course, carbon or titanium are options as well. But steel is more forgiving. It's less expensive. We did go for carbon forks, to lighten our bikes up and to give us more comfort on long, rough sections. And the steel bike combined with the carbon fork and the beefy tires gives you a much more comfortable ride than.
Tire pressure is pretty important too, right? Like not being overinflated. Sometimes people tend to put too much pressure in, so it's bouncier. I mean, you can't have too little pressure either, because your tire will, pinch flat or, pop out or, let air out if it's a tubeless tire. We love aero bars because you can fall asleep on an aero bar. But I mean, that's a danger, but it's also really nice. And it's just like, you're sitting around the kitchen table, just hanging out, making miles. But it gives you more options. I mean, Jen mentioned before, and if you're looking at the width of those bars, those are a little bit wider than your average road bar. So when you're out here going down rough stuff, you're very, very stable. Depends, who you are, where you ride. I ride a lot up here. I like it here, but sometimes this is very stable, and this is really nice when it's, relatively flat or relatively not too rough. Although after a while, you'd be surprised what you can ride on a washboard on this almost. You just sort of get used to it. It's like, okay, well, it's better than I'm too tired doing this.
The aero bars are not necessarily for aerodynamics. They are aero, but our bars are raised. We actually have risers on the aero bars.
There's right here, about 50 millimeters.
So that your back is not as curled over for your riding time.
Another nice thing about them is you can put another bag on it, right? So you can get little racks that you can put bags on, or you can strap them directly to your handlebar. I like well, we both did it, but having space between the bar and your bag, so your hands here, and you're not being squished all the time, is good. I did miss being able to see my front wheel. I can never see my front wheel, so I'm not really quite sure what it's going to go over, but you know what? After a while, you start to realize, okay, I'm looking there, I'm not going to be looking there anyway. So that's one thing. We take little, they're called feed bags. I typically put a bottle in this one because I want to be able to get a bottle of drink really rapidly, and I'm not going down here to look for a bottle when I'm riding on really rough stuff. And then on the other side, fill it up with food or whatever. So there's another one there. I don't have it on here right now, but I have a little gas tank, what's called a gas tank. And that's where I typically keep my phone, just because I want to be able to whip it out easily and take pictures. I don't really use the phone for anything other than taking pictures because I love Instagram. And there's this thing here is called a jerry can. I guess they called that one a gas tank, so they had to call this one a jerry can. But again, things that are you want to have nearby, maybe a water filter or something like that, so that if you want to stop and filter water. You had under the seat bag as well. Yeah. And the saddlebags are narrow, mini saddlebags. They're narrow so that they're not in the way when you're pushing your bike. I actually didn't put one on that side because I always walk on this side of my bike, and I didn't really need the capacity because I have the triangle bag or the frame bag, and so And interestingly enough, like when we left, we thought, oh, we're always gonna have so much space, blah, blah, blah. But we were always filling up with like rolled up